some reading and just take a little nap. Time to read. Here we go. Chapter 10, The Perfect Day of Bridge to Terabithia. Let's refresh real quick. So in chapter 9, it left off with rain, 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 rain so much. It was scary to cross the creek into Terabithia, and Jess didn't want to do it. In fact, it was so scary that he couldn't sleep that night because he was worried about telling Leslie, I'm scared of crossing. I don't want to go across the water because I can't swim and I don't want to drown. And you know how to scuba dive and all that stuff going through his mind. So that takes us to the perfect day. And here, Jess is going to go into Washington, D.C. So let's go ahead and get started here. Make a prediction. What would be the perfect day for Jess? What do you think he would do? What would that look like? All right. Now that you've had a moment, let's take a look here and what's going to happen. Miss Edmonds takes Jess to an art gallery. Just the two of them. It is the best day for Jess because he thinks Miss Edmonds is amazing and he loves art. And the two of them get to spend the day looking at art together. When Jess gets home, however, he gets some horrible, horrible news. And I'm not going to spoil that for you. Hopefully, if you pay attention, it'll happen for you. All right, so let us go ahead and begin. The perfect day. He heard his dad start the pickup. Even though there was no job to go to, he left every morning early to look. Sometimes he just hung around all day at the unemployment office. On lucky days, he got picked up to unload furniture or do cleaning. Jess was awake. He might as well get up. He could milk and feed Miss Bessie and get that over with. He pulled on a t-shirt and overalls over the underwear he slept in. Where are you going? Go back to sleep, Maybelle. I can't. The rain makes too much noise. Well, get up then. Why are you so mean to me? Will you shut up, Maybelle? You'll have everyone in the whole house woke up with the big mouth of yours. Joyce Ann would have screamed, but Maybelle made a face. Oh, come on, he said. I'm just going to milk Miss Bessie. Then maybe we can watch cartoons if we keep the sound real low. Maybelle was as scrawny as Brenda was fat. She stood a moment in the middle of the floor in her underwear, her skin white and goosebumpy. Her eyes were still drooped from sleep, and her pale brown hair stuck up all over her head like a squirrel's nest on a winter branch. That's got to be the ugliest kid, he thought, looking her over with genuine affection. He threw her jeans into her face. She threw her jeans into his face. I'm going to tell Mama. He threw the jeans back at her. Tell Mama what? How you just stand there staring at me when I ain't got no clothes on? Lord. She thought he was enjoying it. Yeah, well, he said, heading for the door so she wouldn't throw anything else at him. Pretty girl like you, can't hardly help myself. He could hear her giggling as he crossed the kitchen. The shed was filled with Miss Bessie's familiar smell. He clucked her gently over and set his stool at her flank in the pail beneath her speckled udder. The rain pounded down the metal roof of the shed so that the plink of milk in the pail set up a counter rhythm. If only it would stop raining. He pressed his forehead against Miss Bessie's warm hide. He wondered idly if cows were ever scared. Really scared. He had seen Miss Bessie jitter away from PT, but that was different. A yapping puppy at your heels is an immediate threat, but the difference between him and Miss Bessie was that when there was no PT in sight, she was perfectly content, sleepily chewing her cud. She wasn't staring down at the old Perkins place, wondering and worrying. She wasn't standing there on her tippy toes while anxiety ate holes through her stomachs. He stroked her forehead across her flank and sighed. If there was still water in the creek come summer, he'd ask Leslie to teach him how to swim. How's that? He said to himself. I'll just grab that old terror by the shoulders and shake the daylights out of it. Maybe I'll even learn scuba diving. He shuddered. He may not have been born with guts, but he didn't have to die without them. Hey, maybe you could go down to the medical college and get a gut transplant. No, doc, I got me a perfectly good heart. What I need is a gut transplant. How about it? He smiled. He'd have to tell Leslie about wanting a gut transplant. It was the kind of nonsense she appreciated. Of course, he broke the rhythm of the milking long enough to shove his hair out of his face. Of course, what I really need is a brain transplant. I know Leslie. I know she's not going to bite off my head or make fun of me if I say I don't want to cross again till the creek's down. All I gotta say is, Leslie, I don't want to go over there today. Just like that, easy as pie. Leslie, I don't want to go over there today. How come? How come? Because, well, because. I called you 3 times already. Maybelle was imitating Ellie's prissiest manner. Call me for what? Some lady wants you on the telephone. I had to get dressed to come get you. He never got phone calls. Leslie had called him exactly once, and Brenda had gone into such a song and dance with her about Jess's getting a call from his sweetheart that Leslie had decided it was simpler to come to the house and get him when she wanted to talk. Sounds kind of like Miss Edmonds. It was Miss Edmonds. Jess? Her voice flowed through the receiver. Miserable weather, isn't it? Yes'm. He was scared to say more for fear she'd hear the shake. I was thinking of driving down to Washington. Maybe go to the Smithsonian or the National Gallery. How would you like to keep me company? He broke out in a cold sweat. Jess. You still there, Jess? Yes'm. He tried to get a deep breath so he could keep talking. Would you like to go with me? Lord. Yes'm. Do you need to get permission? She asked gently. Yes'm. He had somehow managed to twist himself up in the phone cord. Yes'm, just a minute. He untangled himself, put the phone down quietly, and tiptoed into his parents' room. His mother's back made a long hump under the cotton blanket. He shook her shoulder very gently. Mama, he was almost whispering. He wanted to ask her without really waking her up. She was likely to say no if she woke up and thought about it. She jumped at the sound, but relaxed again, not fully awake. Teacher wants me to go to Washington, to the Smithsonian. The syllables were blurred. Yeah, something for school. He stroked her upper arm. You're back before it's too late, okay? Don't worry. I'm done milking. She pulled the blanket to her ears and turned on her stomach. Jess crept back to the phone. It's okay, Miss Edmonds. I can go. Great. I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. Just tell me how to get to your house. As soon as he saw her car turn in, Jess raced out the kitchen door through the rain and met her halfway up the drive. His mother could find out the details from Maybelle after he was safely up the road. He was glad Maybelle was absorbed in the TV. He didn't want her waking Mama up before he got away. He was scared to look back even after he was in the car and on the main road, for fear he'd see his mother screaming after him. It didn't occur to him until the car was past Millsburg that he might have asked Miss Edmonds if Leslie could have come too. When he thought about it, he couldn't suppress a secret pleasure at being alone in the small, cozy car with Miss Edmonds. She drove intently, both hands gripping the top of the wheel, peering forward. The wheels hummed and the windshield wipers slicked a merry rhythm. The car was warm and tilled with the smell of Miss Edmonds. Sorry, it's probably filled. That's probably a typo here. The car was warm and filled with the smell of Miss Edmonds. Jess sat with his hands clasped between his knees. the seatbelt tight across his chest. Damn, Rain, she said. I was going stir crazy. Yes'm, he said happily. You too, huh? She gave him a quick smile. He felt dizzy from the closeness. He nodded. Have you ever been to the National Gallery? No, ma'am. He had never even been to Washington before. But he hoped she wouldn't ask him that. She smiled at him again. Is this your first time to an art gallery? Yes'm. Great, she said. My life has been worthwhile after all. He didn't understand her, but he didn't care. He knew she was happy to be with him, and that was enough to know. Even in the rain, he could make out the landmarks, looking surprisingly the way the books had pictured them. The Lee mansion high on the hill, the bridge, and twice around the circle so he could get a good look at Abraham Lincoln looking out across the city. The White House, the monument, and the other end of the Capitol. Leslie had seen all these places a million times. She'd even gone to school with a girl whose father was a congressman. He thought he might tell Miss Edmonds later that Leslie was a personal friend of a real congressman. Miss Edmonds had always liked Leslie. Entering the gallery was like stepping inside a pine grove. The huge vaulted marble, the cool splash of the fountain, and the green growing all around. Two little children had pulled away from their mothers and were running about screaming to each other. It was all Jess could do not to grab them and tell them how to behave in so obviously a sacred place. And then the pictures. Room after room, floor after floor. He was drunk with color and forms and hues and the voice and perfume of Miss Edmonds always beside him. She would bend her head down close to his face to give some explanation or ask him a question. Her black hair falling across her shoulder. Men would stare at her instead of the pictures, and Jess felt they must be jealous of him for being with her. They ate a late lunch in the cafeteria. When she mentioned lunch, he realized with horror that he would need money, but he didn't know how to tell her that he hadn't brought any. Didn't have any to bring, for that matter. But before he had time to figure out anything, she said, Now, I'm not going to have any argument about who's paying. I'm a liberated woman, Jess Aarons. When I invite a man out, I pay. He tried to think of some way to protest without ending up with a bill, but couldn't, and found himself getting a $3 meal, which was far more than he had meant to have her spend on him. Tomorrow he would check out with Leslie how he should have handled things. After lunch, they trotted through the drizzle to the Smithsonian to see the dinosaurs and the Indians. There they came upon a display case holding a miniature scene of Indians disguised as buffalo skins, scaring a herd of buffalo into stampeding over a cliff to their death, with more Indians waiting below to butcher and skin them. It was a three-dimensional nightmare version of some of his own drawings. He felt a frightening sense of kinship with it. Fascinating, isn't it? Miss Edmonds said, her hair brushing his cheeks as she leaned over to look at it. He touched his cheek. Yes'm. To himself he said, I don't think I like it. But he could hardly pull himself away. When they came out of the building, it was into brilliant spring sunshine. Jess blinked his eyes against the glare of the glisten. Wow, Miss Edmonds said. A miracle! Behold the sun! I was beginning to think she had gone into a cave and vowed never to return, like the Japanese myth. He felt good again. All the way home in the sunshine, Miss Edmonds told funny stories about going to college one year in Japan, where all the boys had been shorter than she, and she hadn't known how to use the toilets. He relaxed. He had so much to tell Leslie and ask her. It didn't matter how angry his mother was, she'd get over it. And it was worth it. This one perfect day of his life was worth anything he had to pay. One dip in the road before the old Perkins place, he said, Just let me out at the road, Miss Edmonds. Don't try to turn in. You might get stuck in the mud. Okay, Jess, she said. She pulled over at his road. Thank you for a beautiful day. The western sun danced on the windshield, dazzling his eyes. He turned and looked Miss Edmonds full in the face. No, ma'am. His voice sounded squeaky and strange. He cleared his throat. No, ma'am. Thank you. Well, he hated to leave without being able to really thank her, but the words were not coming for him now. Later, of course, they would, when he was lying in bed or sitting in the castle. Well, he opened the door and got out. See you next Friday. She nodded, smiling. See you. He watched the car go out of sight and then turned and ran with all his might to the house, the joy jiggling inside of him so hard that he wouldn't have been surprised if his feet had just taken off from the ground the way they sometimes did in dreams and floated him right over the roof. He was all the way into the kitchen before he realized that something was wrong. His dad's pickup had been outside the door, but he hadn't taken it in until he came into the room and found them all sitting there. His parents and the little girls at the kitchen table, Ellie and Brenda on the couch, not eating. There was no food on the table, not watching TV. It wasn't even turned on. He stood unmoving for a second while they stared at him. Suddenly, his mother let out a great, shuddering sob. She said it over and over, her head down on her arms. His father moved to put his arm around her awkwardly, but he didn't take his eyes off Jess. I told you he just gone off somewhere, Maybelle said quietly and stubbornly, as though she had repeated it often and no one had believed her. He squinted his eyes as though trying to peer down a dark drain pipe. He didn't even know what question to ask them. What? He tried to begin. Brenda's pouting voice broke in. Your girlfriend's dead, and Mama thought you was dead too. Ah! That's how the chapter ends? That's how it ends? Ah! Alright, so what news would be so horrible for Jess to hear? Well, we just heard it. So let's review back here. Kind of flustered. That chapter is just, whew. All right. So Jess and his sister Maybelle share a room, and he wakes up, and he's standing there staring at her. And we get this very confusing thing. He thinks to himself, she is the world's ugliest kid. Well, the world's ugliest kid is a super mean thing to think. Like if someone came up to you and said, hello, you've just been awarded the world's ugliest person award. Congratulations. I'm the ugliest person? Ah! But then it says with genuine affection. And genuine means the real deal. And affection means love or care. So he has real love. And if you have real love, do you think that your sister is truly the world's ugliest kid? It's this confusing thing. So I think what it is he's standing there and he's just kind of big brotherly looking at his little sister and going, man, look how tiny and goofy she is. Her hair's all crazy. She just woke up. So she got this sleepy face. It's like, oh my goodness, she's just such a cute little ugly girl. Oh my goodness, I love her so much. She's so precious and important and valuable. So even though it says something really, really mean, I think Jess means it in a kind of a sweet, brotherly, loving kind of way. And let's face it, brothers are all jerks anyway, right? We go, hey, ugly. No, I love you. It's cool. Because, I'm a big brother. I got a little sister and two little brothers. Well, I'm nice and kind and loving now. I'm very mature. But when I was younger. All right, let's move on. All right. He'd asked Leslie to teach him how to swim. Why is Jess so scared? He was scared of Leslie's scuba diving paper. He's scared to cross the full creek. Why? What detail do we get here to explain Jess's fear? Oh, I guess I don't have the answer on there. Well, of course, it's that he doesn't know how to swim. And because he doesn't know how to swim, he doesn't know how to scuba dive. And because he doesn't know how to swim, he's afraid to fall into the creek because he doesn't know how to swim. All right. Now, I have never had the pleasure of going to Washington, D.C., so I have never seen the things that Jess saw. But we have the Smithsonian and the National Art Gallery, and we have the Capitol building, and here's the Washington Monument up over here. So Jess gets to drive around with Miss Edmonds and see all this for the first time, which would be pretty neat. All right. I think it's funny because you kids have no idea because we all have our cell phones and no cords. But Jess has a phone, and this is when I was a kid, right? Our phones were connected to a cord, and you would stand there on the phone, and you would turn, and suddenly you're all twisted and tied up. So, just so you know, that phone cord, this connection, right? He was all twisted up. So, kind of a funny thing, nostalgic. It's kind of old. We don't have to worry about that much anymore. All right, some more details here. The monument that he got to see, the White House, and this is the Lincoln that he was talking about, how Lincoln was staring out, right? Because this is the Lincoln Monument, this huge statue of Abraham Lincoln that he got to see. All right, and in the museum, he saw something that looked like the Indians dressed as wolves and coyotes and scaring the buffalo off the cliff. So that's kind of like what you would see here. And it kind of scares Jess a little bit. He's like, it's a little creepy. It's interesting, but I'm a little, I don't like it. All right. And then we get to the end here. Which is heartbreaking. He was all the way in the kitchen before he realized that something was wrong. So his mind is so happy and it's such a good day. And oh, Miss Edmonds, and I can't wait to tell Leslie and the art and the buildings and what? He doesn't have the words. He's like, this is weird. This is not how my family exists. And he's kind of stopped. He's like, wait, what's going on? And then his father moved to put his arm around her awkwardly. So the mom starts crying, and the dad comes over and it's kind of like awkward, like, okay, it's okay, sweetie. It's okay. All right. So, but it also says he didn't take his eyes off Jess. And I want to remind everyone, his parents have seemed very harsh. Jess's parents have seemed kind of unloving, kind of difficult towards Jess this whole time. But here we have his mom crying because Jess had been gone all day. And then his father is looking at Jess. He doesn't take his eyes off of him. There's true concern. And that concern comes from a place of love. They might not show it very well, but I do think Jess's parents truly love and care for him. They're just not very good at expressing it to their son. And so because of that, Jess often feels kind of unloved, but it's not quite accurate. All right, then we get the word told ya. Let's see here. So if we look here, the translation here, or the is I told ya. Well, if you look at my book, it says told ya. Okay, but again, it's that idea of listening to the sounds, not just reading the words. So, told ya. All right, your girlfriend's dead, and Mama thought you was dead too. Like, oh, that's so shocking. Like, oh my goodness, your girlfriend's dead. Who's his girlfriend? Leslie, right? Not really his girlfriend, but that's who his sisters are always teasing about. You're telling me Leslie's dead? And everyone thought Jess was dead too? What the heck happened? It was Jess's perfect day. I don't understand. All right, we're going to have to figure that out another day. All right, ladies and gents, with that shocking news, let's go ahead and summarize. Jess and Miss Edmonds went to the art gallery. They had a great day, and Jess was so happy. When he got home, his family was acting weird, and they told him that Leslie was dead. Why? All right, going to go back, take my nap now, finish it up. Bye.